3 months ago, I thought I was just being supportive, giving her space, listening, holding back when she needed time. I didn't know she was building a narrative in parallel, one where I was cold, distant, emotionally unavailable. And by the time I heard what she'd been telling people, it was too late to stay silent. You ever convince yourself that silence is the same thing as stability? That as long as no one's yelling, crying, or walking out the door, things must be okay? That was us. We didn't fight much. We didn't scream. We didn't throw things or post dramatic quotes online. In fact, from the outside, we probably looked healthy, maybe even boring. But for a while, I thought boring meant peaceful, predictable, safe. We met through mutual friends during a weekend getaway. One of those lake house situations where no one knows where the extra towels are, and you bond over burnt pancakes and bad Bluetooth speakers. She was magnetic in that setting, charming, loud in a way that made everyone else lean in. I liked how she made people laugh. I liked that she chose me. And when we got back to real life, she kept choosing me. Texts in the morning, long calls at night, inside jokes stacking up like bricks. I fell into it fast, faster than I usually do. And she told me that scared her a little. Said she needed someone who didn't move at 1,000 miles an hour emotionally. So I pulled back, gave her space, let her take the lead. At first, she seemed to appreciate that. She told our friends I was refreshingly calm, steady, and not one of those reactive guys. That was her favorite word for it, reactive. Like other guys were always exploding or over-responding, and I was this rare, quiet current she could float in. And I believed her. We settled into a rhythm. She'd have her solo nights. I'd send a good night text, even if she didn't respond until noon the next day. She'd cancel plans, and I'd tell her it was totally fine, even when it wasn't. I wanted to be the guy who gave her room to breathe, the one who didn't pressure her, the one she could count on. Looking back, I realized how much I equated restraint with love, how much I swallowed, hoping it counted as support. She talked a lot about her mental health, trauma from past relationships, struggles with self-worth, family wounds that ran deep. I listened, always listened. I never tried to fix it, never interrupted. I told myself that was what being emotionally available looked like. But then there were the things she didn't tell me, or told others instead. I started noticing shifts. People giving me strange looks. A mutual friend asking if I was really okay with how distant I seemed. Someone else mentioning I wasn't the warmest guy. And I'd laugh it off, confused. Where was this coming from? Little things. Offhand remarks. But they built up like static. And still, I said nothing. I figured maybe I was overthinking. Maybe I was too reserved. Maybe I wasn't as present as I thought I was. I gave her the benefit of every doubt. Because I loved her. Little did I know, everything was about to change. It started on a Sunday. One of those post-brunch, slightly hungover afternoons where you don't really do anything. You just exist near each other. I was sitting on her couch, flipping through a graphic novel while she scrolled on her phone. Nothing unusual. Nothing tense. Then her phone buzzed, twice. Rapid. She tilted it away from me. Subtle, but not subtle enough. I didn't say anything. I kept reading. Or pretended to. But I watched her face change. She smirked. The kind of smirk you wear when someone just sent you a meme that hits a little too close. Then she typed back fast. 2 thumbs, full focus. It wasn't the smirk that got me. It was the smile after the smirk. That exhale through the nose kind of smile. The kind you send someone you feel safe with. Still, I said nothing. What I didn't realize then was that I'd trained myself to suppress instinct. To interpret unease as personal insecurity. After a few minutes, she put her phone face down. Looked at me like nothing had happened. You okay? She asked. Casual, soft. Yeah, just tired, I lied. She leaned over, kissed my cheek, and said, You've been kind of quiet lately. I almost laughed. Me, quiet? That was part of the deal. I thought she liked that about me. That I didn't explode or spiral or demand constant updates. I wanted to ask, compared to who? But instead, I nodded. Sorry, long week. That night, she didn't invite me to stay over. Said she had a work call in the morning and needed a night to herself. Again, not unusual, not suspicious. That was our rhythm, right? Only, it started becoming a pattern. The next few weeks blurred into a strange cycle. Shorter texts, slower replies. Always just tired, always just stressed. But then I'd see her post a story from some rooftop gathering. All laughter, perfect lighting, the clink of glasses. And I wasn't there. It wasn't jealousy. Not exactly. It was displacement. Like watching a play I used to have a role in, and now I was just in the audience. Then one night, at a small party thrown by a mutual friend, I heard something that made my stomach tighten. A guy I barely knew, someone I recognized from her comment section, walked past me and said, "Hey, you're the emotionally unavailable one, right?" He smiled when he said it, like it was a joke. I laughed, unsure. What? Oh, nothing, just messing around. Forget it. He kept walking, but I stood there, replaying the sentence in my head. Emotionally unavailable. That wasn't a phrase he made up. That was language. Language she'd used. About me. To someone else. And it clicked. All those weird comments, the awkward looks, the people who used to greet me warmly suddenly turning cool. She wasn't just venting. She was building a narrative. One where I was the villain. One where she got to be the survivor. And that was just the beginning of my nightmare. The next morning, I told myself it didn't mean anything. Maybe he was just joking. Maybe I misheard. Maybe it was just banter, drunk people at a party saying things they don't even remember. But the seed had been planted. And once it's there, it starts looking for water. I started noticing how carefully she curated her image in front of others. She was always the one who held space for everyone else. Always the one reminding people to take care of their mental health, to set boundaries, to watch out for emotionally avoidant men. That phrase, she used it a lot. On Instagram, in group chats, at brunch. And I started wondering, was that supposed to be me? Still, I didn't confront her. I didn't want to seem paranoid. I kept thinking, if I wasn't emotionally available, wouldn't I be the one storming into her apartment and accusing her? So I did what I always did. I waited, observed, gave her the benefit of the doubt. But she gave me little reasons not to. She stopped asking about my day. She stopped pausing music when I started speaking. She started referring to our relationship in the past tense. Remember when we used to cook together? You used to be really sweet. Used to. And then there were the phone calls. She'd step outside to take them. Said they were too loud for the living room. She'd come back smiling, humming, with this lightness that I didn't seem to bring out in her anymore. I didn't want to admit how much that hurt. One night, she left her phone charging in the kitchen while she showered. Nothing out of the ordinary, except it buzzed again. 3 times. I didn't touch it, but I glanced. Name on the screen, Micah speech balloon. That emoji hadn't been there before. The text preview was short. I just wish you didn't have to go back there after what he said. I froze. What who said? I stood in the dark kitchen, staring at that message like it was some kind of code I couldn't crack. I knew better than to assume the worst. But my body didn't. My stomach churned. My hands went cold. My ears started ringing, like the truth was crawling up behind me. I didn't mention it when she came out. I just said I had to head out early. She didn't protest. I went home and opened my laptop. Searched her name and his, together, just in case. Comments. Likes. Subtle callouts. A post from Micah's page 3 weeks ago. Some people drain you without saying a word. Protect your energy. She commented. Ugh, yes. Been living this. The next day, I asked our mutual friend, the one who invited both of us to that lake house all those months ago, if she'd heard anything weird lately. There was a pause. A long one. Then she said, she's just been processing stuff. You know, working through a lot. Stuff about what? Another pause. She said you weren't really emotionally present. That she didn't feel safe opening up around you. That she had to find support elsewhere. My throat went dry. Support like Micah? Silence. I shouldn't be telling you this, she said finally. But yeah. She said he listens. That he gets her. She said you just shut down. I didn't respond. I couldn't. Because I had shut down, but not in the way she meant. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept scrolling, reading, piecing things together. Every caption, every reply, every story highlight suddenly felt like a veiled jab, a breadcrumb from a narrative she'd been writing behind my back. Then I found something that confirmed my worst fears. I told myself I was being dramatic. That Micah was just a friend. That maybe she vented to him the way she used to vent to me, back when we were still on the same team. I told myself people say things when they're overwhelmed. It didn't mean she was trying to destroy me. I repeated that so many times, I almost believed it. But then I remembered something. A shared drive we'd both forgotten about. Google Docs from when we planned her photography zine. She had never unlinked it from my account. Most of the folders were untouched, but one caught my eye. Voice notes / private. I hovered. My stomach turned. I knew I shouldn't open it. But I did. There were 5 files, each labeled by date. The most recent was from 4 days ago. I clicked it. Her voice filled my headphones, raw, low, and exhausted. I just don't know how much longer I can pretend. He's not bad, you know? That's the worst part. He's just absent. He thinks being quiet is the same thing as being supportive. I tell him something real, and it's like I'm talking into a void. Pause. A long, shaky breath. Micah said I deserve someone who actually shows up, not someone who just occupies space. And it's crazy because everyone thinks he's this amazing guy, calm, composed. But it's all surface. I cry in front of him, and he blinks. With Micah, I feel seen. My jaw clenched. My hands started to shake. This wasn't just venting. This was a monologue. A narrative. Practiced. Intentional. She didn't just talk to him about me. She practiced what she'd say. Like she was rehearsing a script for her next breakdown. Like she needed to get the delivery right. I closed the tab, sat back, and stared at my ceiling for a long time. I thought of all the nights I held her while she cried over past relationships. All the times I cooked when she was too depressed to eat. All the times I walked her dog at 2 a.m. because she couldn't get out of bed. Apparently, that didn't count as showing up. Apparently, only loud love was real love. But here's the thing. It wasn't just that she was talking about me. It was who she was saying it to. Because I dug deeper. Checked her location history. We still shared that, technically. Micah's apartment had shown up 3 times in the past month. Late nights. Early mornings. That's when I realized. It wasn't support. It wasn't healing. It was replacement. I tried to breathe. My chest was tight. My skin felt like it didn't fit. I felt stupid for ever thinking I was the calm in her storm. Turns out, I was the silence she used to justify a louder escape. Still, I hadn't confronted her. Not yet. Because part of me still wanted to believe there was an explanation. That maybe I'd misunderstood. That maybe, somehow, I was wrong. So I made a decision. I'd ask her directly. Not accuse. Just ask. But when I opened our text to message her, I noticed something new. A photo. A group shot from a gallery opening she'd never told me about. And in the background, half turned away, was Micah, holding her coat, smiling like someone who belonged. That photo wasn't on her profile. It was on his. And the caption? Sometimes you find clarity where you least expect it. I wasn't ready for what I was about to discover. I couldn't unsee it. That photo, casual, unassuming, blurry even, hit harder than any confession ever could. Not because of what it showed, but because of what it implied. Because she looked at home in that scene. Not like a visitor. Not like someone passing through. And Micah? He wasn't just some guy in the background. He was centered, in the frame, in her orbit, in her new life. That night, I stopped sleeping. Not out of anger. Not even heartbreak. It was something else. That hollow, vibrating feeling in your chest when your sense of reality starts to split at the seams. So I did what I hadn't let myself do yet. I looked through her TikTok. Not the public stuff, the ones everyone sees. The soft launch videos. The quiet trend lip syncs. The vague, aesthetic sound overlays meant to look like they mean nothing. But I watched them all. And the captions started making sense in reverse. When he calls it overthinking, but your gut says otherwise. Learning not to beg for attention. When someone new makes silence feel safe again. Each of them had been posted during our relationship. And I recognized the clothes. The background walls. The throw pillows, my pillows. She'd filmed some of them while sitting on my couch, in my hoodie. To the outside world, I was already her ex, long before she ever told me I was. The final punch landed when I found her anonymous Reddit profile. I knew it was hers from the username, an obscure inside joke we once shared. And then I read this post. He doesn't hit me. He doesn't yell. He doesn't cheat. But somehow, I feel more alone next to him than I did when I was single. I don't know if it's emotional neglect or just emotional absence, but I'm tired of being invisible. There's someone who listens, who sees me, and I feel guilty for even thinking about him that way. But maybe I deserve to be chosen too. The comments poured in. Girl, leave. You're not a rehab center. You deserve better. Trust your gut. He sounds like he's emotionally dead. And she replied, not to defend me, not to offer nuance, but to agree. I feel like I'm gaslighting myself just trying to stay. That line made me close the tab, not out of shame, but out of clarity, because I finally understood the role I'd been playing. I wasn't the partner. I was the foil. I was the contrast she needed to justify her shift. I was the gray that made her new world feel technicolor. I wasn't emotionally unavailable. I was emotionally inconvenient. There's a kind of grief no one talks about. The grief of realizing your reality was someone else's excuse. And then came the part that finally snapped something inside me. That same day, a friend from our original friend group sent me a screenshot. A story Micah had posted. Private. Friends only. Someone had taken a screen recording. It was her. Not crying, not ranting. Just laughing. He'd captioned it. When she finally ditches the void and finds some light. The post had 63 reactions. Likes. Hearts. Applause emojis. People we both knew. And none of them had said a word to me. This wasn't just about us anymore. This was public. This was curated. This was a campaign. And I'd been silent too long. So I opened her shared calendar, the one she still forgot I had access to, and found the perfect date. An upcoming event. Group gathering. Friends, old and new. It was time to show up. But not the way she expected. This went so much deeper than I thought. At first, I wanted to disappear. Not dramatically, no grand farewell text, no monologue. Just vanish. Pack a bag, block some people, change my number, rebuild quietly. The clean kind of exit. The mature one. But that fantasy only lasted until morning. Because when I opened my phone, I saw Micah had added another post. Not about her, not directly. But it was a selfie, captioned, "Healing is loud sometimes. Get used to it." And there she was in the comments again. Let them call it messy. At least it's real. I felt my jaw tighten. What part of this was real? What part of me being rewritten in real time? Reframed as cold and distant, erased from the story? What part of that was real? I started pacing. See, I wasn't angry that she needed support. I wasn't jealous she found someone else. I was angry that she made me the villain in her redemption arc. I was angry that people who used to hug me at parties now raised their eyebrows like I was the one who broke something sacred. And the worst part? She never even broke up with me. She just downgraded me. Slowly. Soft launches with Micah. Quiet rebranding. Emotional ghosting dressed up as evolution. I knew if I confronted her directly, she'd twist it. She'd call me reactive. She'd cry. She'd say, "I never said anything bad about you," and let implication do the rest. So I needed something more deliberate. I opened my notes app and started writing. Quotes from her voice notes. Screenshots of public comments. Timestamps on when she'd posted things versus when we were together. The Reddit post, archived. That group photo with Micah. Her text from our last week together, where she told me I was the only one who really gets it. I wasn't planning revenge. I was gathering context. Because she'd told our friends one story, and I was tired of being polite while watching it go viral in real life. But I still hesitated. What would I gain from calling her out? What if I did show everyone? What if I played her voice memo in front of them, revealed the comments, the post, the betrayal? Would they even care? Or would they just say, "Damn, that's messy," and go back to scrolling? That was the worst possibility. Not that she'd deny it, but that it would all be met with a shrug. That my pain would just become content in someone else's group chat. Still, I couldn't do nothing. Because I had to look at myself in the mirror. I had to be able to say I stood up, not for petty revenge, but for the truth. So I circled the event on the calendar, a mutual friend's art gallery opening. She'd RSVP'd. So had Micah. Most of the old crew would be there. No drama, just wine, soft jazz, minimalist lighting, fake smiles. Perfect. I wouldn't start a scene, but I wouldn't stay silent either. There's a kind of revenge that doesn't raise its voice. It just lets the truth echo in a room full of people who thought they already knew the story. I rehearsed what I'd say. Not loud. Not angry. Just real. Finally, I knew what I had to do. The gallery was in one of those repurposed warehouses, the kind with cement floors, dramatic uplighting, and awkward acoustics that make every hey echo like a siren. I showed up early. Not out of nervousness, not exactly. I just needed to walk the space, feel the corners, know where everyone would be standing. I wasn't here to cause a scene. I was here to hold one. As guests trickled in, I kept it casual. Small talk. Compliments on outfits. I sipped the free wine like it actually tasted good. Waited. Then she walked in. Not alone, but not hand in hand either. Micah hovered behind her, laughing at something she whispered as they checked their coats. He had that smug, half-tilted smile, like he thought the evening already belonged to him. She didn't see me at first. And then she did. Her eyes froze, just for a second. Then came the smile, polite, curated, a practiced softness. She walked toward me like everything was fine. "Hey." Didn't know you'd be here. Yeah, I said. I figured I'd come see the work. Support our friends. She nodded, her tone too even. I'm glad you're out. You seem better. Better. Like I'd been broken. Like she was the one checking my progress. I've been writing, I said. Helps clear the head. That flicker again in her eyes. A split-second pulse of worry before she smiled. That's good. Just make sure you're doing it for you. Not, to prove something. I smiled back. I don't need to prove anything. She blinked, and I took out my phone. I didn't press play. I didn't scroll. I just opened the note file titled, Unavailable, the word you gave me. And I handed it to her. Quiet. No audience. Just us. She scrolled. Screenshots. Quotes. Timestamps. Her voice, in her own words, now staring back at her from a glowing screen. She paled. Where did you? I tilted my head. You forgot about the zine drive. She looked around, like maybe someone was watching. Like maybe someone could jump in and rescue her. But no one noticed. What do you want me to say? Nothing, I said. You already said enough. I took the phone back, tucked it into my jacket. She started to speak, but I raised a hand. I'm not here to fight. I just wanted you to know. I know. She stood there, frozen. Then, a nervous laugh. So what? You're going to tell everyone. Blast me. That's not who you are. I shrugged. People can decide for themselves. And I walked away. It felt clean, like a full stop at the end of a long, gaslit sentence. That night, I slept. For the first time in weeks. No racing thoughts. No echo chamber of self-doubt. I figured it was done. The truth had been delivered, directly, without malice, without noise. She could spin it however she wanted, but the look in her eyes told me she wouldn't. Micah didn't approach me once. I thought it was over. I couldn't have been more wrong. It started with a tag. Nothing dramatic, just a group photo from the gallery, posted by one of our mutuals. She was in it. So was I? So was Micah. No captions. Just tags and a few emojis. By itself, it would have gone unnoticed. But Instagram's algorithm has a sense of irony. A day later, I got a DM from someone I hadn't talked to in over a year. One of her old roommates. Hey, is everything okay between you two? Someone sent me a TikTok and I think it's about you. My stomach sank. I clicked the link. There she was, hair tied up, standing in her kitchen, soft background music playing. The on-screen text read, POV, you finally speak your truth after months of silent suffering. And he tries to expose you for it. She wasn't crying. She was performing. The voiceover said, funny how the quiet ones suddenly find their voice the moment you start healing. I blinked. The caption? To all the women who've been called dramatic for trying to feel safe. I see you, Purple Heart. The comments were brutal. This screams narcissist X trying to control the narrative. Tell me you were emotionally abused without telling me. He probably wants credit for not hitting you. My hands went cold. This wasn't just shade. It was a counterattack. And she hadn't tagged me, of course. No names. No proof. Just enough plausible deniability to play innocent, while letting the mob fill in the blanks. But she'd underestimated one thing. Micah's ego. Because the next day, he posted a clip from the same night. Grainy footage from the gallery, slightly zoomed, showing me and her talking. My face serious. Her face pale. The caption? When the mask slips. I felt the air leave my lungs. He wanted to play the hero. He wanted to be the one who rescued her, not just in private, but in public. And now I was the villain in someone else's viral arc. More DMs came in. Some from friends. Some from strangers. Some asking if I was okay. Some not even asking, just deciding. You looked intense in that video. Did something happen? Hey man, I heard some stuff. I don't want to assume, but yikes. She's being so brave speaking up like that. I felt like I was drowning. 1 minute I was reclaiming my voice. The next, I was being painted as the very thing I swore I'd never become. I scrolled and scrolled, trying to find a lifeline. A comment. A message. Anything that said, hey, maybe this isn't the whole story. But silence. And then I saw it. A reply she left under someone's comment. Healing isn't linear. Especially when they start watching your every move and calling it proof. That was the moment something in me flipped. This wasn't confusion anymore. This was calculated. She was building a brand out of victimhood. And I was the cautionary tale, the guy you warn your followers about, just vague enough to be useful. But if she wanted to make it public, then public it would be. What happened next made me question everything. I stopped checking my phone, stopped opening apps, stopped responding to DMs, even from people I trusted. There comes a point where every vibration feels like a punch, where silence is safer than trying to defend yourself against an accusation that was never made directly, only implied until everyone believed it. I kept replaying that moment at the gallery. Had I raised my voice? Had I leaned in too close? Had I done anything that could be clipped, decontextualized, and sold as intimidation? I couldn't remember, and that scared me more than anything, because now I didn't trust my own memory. I didn't trust my own face. One frame from one video, and suddenly people were debating my character in group chats I'd never see. That's what digital betrayal feels like. Not loud, not obvious, just a slow erosion of your name in rooms you didn't enter. For a while, I considered making my own post, laying it all out, screenshots, audio, timestamps, letting people hear her voice calling me safe and steady just weeks before she started painting me as emotionally unavailable. But I couldn't bring myself to do it. Not because I didn't want to, but because I knew how it would look. Defensive, petty, aggressive. The exact narrative she'd crafted, fulfilled. I felt cornered. I felt erased. I felt like a ghost in my own timeline. One night, I sat in the dark, reading her Reddit post again, the one about me being a void. And I started to believe it. Maybe I was empty. Maybe I really did make her feel alone. Maybe Micah really did see her better than I ever could. Because if this many people believed her, how could they all be wrong? That spiral lasted 2 days, until I got a message from someone I hadn't expected. Her ex. We'd never spoken directly, but I recognized the name from old stories. One she'd told me in tears about how he emotionally manipulated her, gaslit her constantly, and never took accountability. He didn't say much, just sent this. I stayed quiet too, for way too long. Just wanted you to know, I see what she's doing. And it's not you. I stared at the screen for a full minute. Then came the second message. Let me guess. She called you unavailable. She said you didn't show up emotionally. But somehow, she still expected you to carry her pain. I felt something crack, not from pain this time, but from validation. Like someone finally handed me a flashlight in a room I'd been told was all in my head. He was the ghost of the last chapter. I was the current one. Same script, different actor. And if we both had the same scars, maybe the story wasn't hers to control anymore. I opened my laptop, created a folder, labeled it the whole story, because maybe I didn't need to blast it. Maybe I just needed to own it, quietly, thoroughly, and fully. So if anyone ever asked, I'd be ready. I realized what I had to do to end this once and for all. It happened on a podcast. Not mine, not hers. Just one of those growing safe space shows where guests talk about healing, boundaries, growth. She was the featured guest. The topic? Recovering from invisible wounds. The clip started circulating before the episode even dropped. Her voice, calm, deliberate, measured, filled my headphones once again. It took me a long time to realize I wasn't crazy. That just because someone doesn't yell or hit doesn't mean they're safe. Silence can be violence. Absence can be neglect. And emotional availability, it's not just about listening. It's about presence. The host nodded along. Was there a moment when you knew you had to walk away? She smiled, small, pained. Yeah. He showed up one day and tried to prove he had been there all along. Like evidence could replace empathy. That's when I realized I wasn't the one who disappeared. My inbox filled again. Friends, acquaintances, people I hadn't heard from since college. Some messaged in support, some not so much. But I didn't reply to any of them. Instead, I sent an email to the podcast producer. Calm, respectful, professional. Hello, I'd like to share a different perspective, not to counter your guest, but to complete the picture. I was the partner she spoke about, and I have documentation that may reframe how the story's being perceived. No reply. For 4 days. Then a short message. We're open to hearing your side. Would you be willing to speak anonymously? I declined. If I was going to speak, really speak, I wasn't going to do it in the shadows. So I wrote my own post. Not a rant, not a smear, just facts. I've stayed quiet for a long time. Not out of guilt, out of confusion. But when you're publicly recast as a villain in someone else's growth arc, you eventually have 2 options. Let the story stand. Offer the full script. I attached screenshots of her messages calling me steady, safe, healing. Voice note quotes she left for Micah. The Reddit post she made, timestamped while we were still together. The zine draft folder, where she rehearsed the story before it went live. I didn't attack her. I didn't name call. I didn't speculate. I just wrote. Make your own conclusions. But ask yourself, is silence always absence? Or is it sometimes the space you leave for someone else to speak, until they turn around and punish you for not interrupting? And then I logged off. The reaction? Louder than I expected. People started sharing my post. Not to cancel her, but to say, this is the part we never hear. Someone commented, funny how we always believe the loudest pain first. Another wrote, this doesn't feel like revenge. This feels like recovery. She never replied. She never posted about it. But she unfollowed Micah the next day, archived all her healing videos, and went quiet. Finally, I stopped being a character in her story and became the author of my own. It's been 6 months. No more videos. No more cryptic captions. No more late-night texts from people trying to piece together who to believe. Just silence. And for the first time in a long time, it actually feels like peace, not punishment. I didn't set out to destroy anyone. I didn't want to go viral. I just wanted to feel real again, like I existed outside someone else's edits. Like I wasn't some cautionary tale in a glow-filtered narrative about healing loudly. What surprised me most wasn't how people reacted to the truth. It was how quietly they did. No dramatic reversals. No public apologies. Just subtle shifts. The friends who ghosted me started liking my posts again. The podcast host removed the clip from their page. A few people, the ones who matter, messaged just to say, I'm sorry I didn't ask your side sooner. I didn't respond to most of them. Not out of bitterness. Just nothing left to say. Because what she did wasn't just lie about me. She redefined me. She made emotional restraint look like abandonment. She made kindness look like detachment. She took my silence, the space I gave her to breathe, and filled it with fiction. And maybe she needed that to grow. Maybe some people only learn to speak by turning others into shadows. But I've learned something too. I've learned that empathy doesn't mean erasure. That love doesn't mean giving someone the knife and apologizing when they use it. That being the calm one only works if the other person isn't setting fires for attention. Now I talk more. Not in a loud way. Not all at once. But I don't swallow things just to keep the peace. I don't stay just because I understand where someone's trauma came from. And I don't let people write me out of my own life. I still get that feeling sometimes. When I walk into a party and see someone whisper, I still wonder, what version of me did they hear? But then I remember something her ex said to me. The one who reached out when no one else did. It's not about clearing your name. It's about remembering you had won before they tried to rewrite it. And that stuck. So now I write. Sometimes for me. Sometimes for people like me. Not to win. Not to clap back. Just to say, I was here too. That matters more than revenge ever did. If you've made it this far, thank you. Not just for watching, but for listening. Because stories like this, they're not about revenge. They're about clarity. The kind that only comes after you've been doubted, gaslit, rebranded, and still chose to speak calmly instead of screaming for proof. You don't have to be loud to be valid. You don't have to be dramatic to be hurt. Sometimes, the deepest wounds come from the people who cry the loudest when you finally speak. If this story reminded you of something, drop a comment. Tell me your version. Your Micah. Your moment where silence turned into self-defense. Because that's why we share these. Not to cancel anyone, but to remember we're not alone. And if this hit home, consider subscribing. We post real stories, told without filters, every week. Sometimes, the quiet ones finally get their say. And when they do, it echoes.